Hi everyone, thank you for coming to this webpage. This is a screencast for people interested in using UAM Corpus tool. This program is available on the internet for free. It's very useful. I used it for my thesis project, and I'm very grateful to the people who created it for making it available. It's from Spain, so UAM stands for Universidad Autónoma de Madrid. I'm very sorry for my pronunciation, but I thought I should clarify that. And this is their webpage, their URL, sorry, corpustool.com. So this first screencast, I have four. This first one, I just wanted to show you some things that kind of need to be done before you start a project, or decisions, I guess, that need to be made. First of all, um, let me tell you very roughly what this program is. It's a text annotation tool, which means that you can take a file, or a collection of files more likely, and tag it in some way that is useful. So my project was an error analysis project, and I'll just bring that up an example. So I basically had essays written by ESL students, and I was looking at the errors that they make. And error analysis, if you have taken TESOL classes, it's a kind of a movement that came around in the 70s for looking at language, and errors were considered not a bad thing, but actually very interesting and helpful for teachers to understand the progress that students are making. So I won't go into a lot of detail on that, but basically, if you're doing error analysis, one of the tasks is to, well, there's two separate tasks. One is to identify all the errors, which I've done here with the highlighting function in Word. So you go through and just kind of make a binary decision, yes, no, if there's a mistake. And then the second stage is a categorization stage, where you figure out a way to organize the information in some way. So you pick a taxonomy of errors, usually, that will work for you, and you start to put the errors into categories and count them. And that second stage is this program is very useful for that, because trying to do it on paper with pencil is very confusing and gets kind of overwhelming really quickly. And so I'll show you that later, but just as a kind of overview of what's possible, I had 70 essays written by students as placement essays when they began a semester at the university where I work, and by using this program and going through methodically, doing this process of highlighting and then classifying the errors, I was able to correlate their rates of different kinds of errors with the score that they received on their placement essay, which I won't go into all the details, but the scoring process is a little bit quick. Basically, all the teachers in the department get together for an evening and quickly read through this huge stack of essays and assign grades using a rubric. And each essay is read by two people. And it works out pretty well, but there's always a little bit of doubt in people's minds as to whether they're doing it in the best possible way, or because it's a quick process and there's not time to analyze every detail. So by using this program and using a representative set of the data, I was able to, I guess, substantiate what the work that they had done, and to say, yes, people may be working quickly and a little bit intuitively, but they actually are responding to what is there in the texts. So this is not from my students. This is from a book that I highly recommend by um, Lane and Lane's Writing Clearly, an Editing Guide. It's a part of a two-book series, which I'll show you a screenshot of later, that is for people teaching ESL composition. So basically, before you start a project, you need a collection of documents to work with. So if you're a teacher, you will have very likely lots and lots of traces there, work done by your students. If you're more of an administrator in a department, you would have essays written by students from the entire department. You need a way to digitize them, which in my case meant the very unglamorous task of just typing up handwritten essays. I guess there are programs you can use to scan documents. I don't know how well they work with handwritten papers, but So you need a corpus, which is just a fancy word for a group of documents. You need a way to get them into the computer. You need to decide what your focus is of your research. So mine was error analysis. And if you're doing any kind of categorizing or classifying, that's what this program is very useful for. I'm going to show you how to, for this first video, how to download the program and then how to open this file called car in the program. It's kind of the first step. So first, this is the website for the tool, and the downloads button is here. Here you just click whether you're a Windows user or a Mac user, and that will take you to the link that you need. There's also, for people who do a lot of work on their campus, and they might be using institutional computers that don't allow them to download programs. They have this one here, a Windows user of lab machines. This one actually you can run off like a removable hard drive or a zip drive without downloading it. So that I did a lot of my work with this version. It's not the most recent version, and they don't have it for Mac, it's just for Windows, but still it's very nice to have that option. So you basically do the usual process that you would download a program, and then it will end up on your desktop. So I'm going to click it to open it here, make it fit in the screen. So I'm going to make a new project here, and so it will take you through some screens for that. So I'm going to click next. I'm going to put a name. I'm going to call this just example project. Click next. You can save this anywhere you want. If you click the little dots, it will give you choices. The desktop is fine for me for this. Oops, I guess it went away. So let me go back. I'll just put mine on the desktop. That's fine. Next. And I need to resize the window so that you'll be able to see it. When you click the resize button, for some reason it jumps to this really tiny size, and you have to drag it up to be a more reasonable size. So that's it. And it didn't seem like we did much there. We basically, this program uses a collection of files. It's a corpus program. So it's not just one file when you're working on something. It's a collection of lots of different files, and it keeps most of them organized behind the scenes for you, so you don't have to worry about it. The only part you really have to worry about is the individual essays. Other than that, it creates, every time you tag an essay, it uses XML, which I don't actually know that much about, but that's what it's using behind the scenes to make this all possible. So right now it's empty. It's like an empty shell with nothing in it. So we need to start populating it with our data. So I'm going to click here. Actually, there's one more step. This program can only work with text files. It can't work directly with a Word document. So you have some choices. You can either do this work ahead of time. So I'm going to go back to my Word document here, and I could save this as a text file, which maybe I'll just do that. That's probably the easiest thing. I'm going to go to Save As in Word, and then I'm going to, right here, click Plain Text right here. And I'm going to save it, that's fine. I'll just save it with the same name, and I'll click Save. And the default settings are fine. So now when I go back into my corpus tool, I'm going to click Extend Corpus, which is a fancy way of saying you're going to go out and look for files. So I'm going to click Next. And if you had an entire folder, like for example with my project with the placement essays, I had a folder with 70 text files. You could import all of them all at once. You can actually paste in, which might have been easier in this case, but you're more likely to have files that you're working with, so I'm going to click that. I'm going to navigate to where I had that saved, which was on the documents, and I had it in here, and there it is. So just as with anything, you just navigate to wherever you saved it. So there it is. Click Next. I don't know why it's spelled like that. Maybe it's a British spelling, but finalize, and there it is. So the program sticks it down here in this little kind of no man's land at the bottom. I'm not sure why, but you have to do one extra step to make it kind of fully part of your project. You have to click this incorporate button. I guess maybe the reason to keep it separate is you might have a folder full of files and you're only interested in working with some of them. So then you would just click the ones you want. If you changed your mind, and you could click this delete file to just remove it from your project. But I'm going to click incorporate all. It tells me some information about the file. If it's not in English, I can choose these other languages. This program does allow you to work with other languages. It doesn't, I think some of the automated processes aren't ready yet, or haven't been programmed yet for other languages, but a lot of the functions you can. This other stuff is fine. You could change the font if you want. So I will click OK, and then it tells me it's done, and that's it. So now my essay is here in this area, and it's ready for me to work with it. I am going to stop here for now. I wanted to make these videos kind of short, like no longer than 15 minutes. But just to recap, these are things you kind of do at the very beginning of a project. Finding a corpus that will work for your research, creating text files of each individual essay. I guess it wouldn't have to be each individual essay. You could put them all into one, but it would make sense to have them in separate files. Deciding on a taxonomy, which you'll get a clearer sense of in the next video. The one I used, let me show you before the time is up. Okay, first of all, this is the book that I got that essay from. This is by Linda Bates, Janet Lane, Ellen Lange. It's a little bit of an older book, but it's about writing, and it's specifically for ESL teachers, and I love this book. I don't know why it hasn't been reprinted. I find it very useful just for the way, I guess everyone's different, but I love this book. The same authors wrote this additional book, which was intended as a textbook for the ESL students. It's for kind of high-level advanced, I guess you'd say EAP, English for Academic Purposes students, and it has lessons organized around specific errors that students tend to make, and they have an error classification scheme, which is what I used in my research project, which you'll see in a later video. And then this book, Dana Ferris and John Hitchcock, this is another book that I just love. It's also about teaching writing specifically for ESL teachers. They have an error classification scheme that's much simpler that I'm actually going to use in my next video. It only has 7 categories, which is not overwhelming, so that's what I will use to show you guys how to do that step in the next video. And I think that's it for this first video. So the next video I'll go over how to create an error classification scheme inside of the program, and also how to use some of the it comes with some that are already preloaded in there if you choose to use one of those, but I think it's usually more useful to create your own. So I'll show you that process, and then there'll be 2 more videos after that, which I'll get to later. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something and that you'll be motivated to learn a little more about this program. Thank you.